In our last video, a subscriber left this comment. I wish Alabama would bring back the white helmets for road games, just like in the 60s and 80s. And you know what? That's true. Alabama really did wear white helmets. It's not fan fiction, it's not a photoshopped picture. Those helmets existed. They shined under the Tuscaloosa sun in the 1950s, stood out in night games during the 1960s, popped up again in the 1970s, and made one last strong appearance in 1983 and 1984 under head coach Ray Perkins. And after that, they disappeared. But is there any chance those nostalgic white helmets could return in the near future? Have you ever seen Alabama play with white helmets? Do you miss them? Or do you think they don't belong in our tradition anymore? And above all, why haven't they been used again? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today, right here on Roll Tide Press. Before we continue, here's a quick but important message. If you want to talk about Alabama or any topic, politics, Christianity, whatever you're passionate about, and still make money with it, check the link I'm leaving in the first pinned comment. With this tool, people simply won't be able to ignore your videos, and you'll profit from the topics you love. That's exactly what I do. It's worth checking out. Before diving into the past, we have to understand why the crimson helmet became untouchable. It isn't just a piece of equipment, it's a symbol, a brand, the DNA of Alabama football. Nick Saban said it himself in an interview with Sports Illustrated back in September of 2022. We wear the same uniform. They want to wear white helmets. Everybody wants to do this and that. To me, there's an expectation that when we run out of the tunnel, this is the brand. This is the culture. And he's right. When Alabama storms out of that tunnel, the crimson helmet is part of the intimidation. It tells opponents exactly who's coming. Saban doubled down in comments reported by Saturday Down South the same week. He made it crystal clear that as long as he was head coach, the crimson helmet was never going to be replaced. To him, changing the uniform meant tampering with the soul of the program. So now you see, it's not just about fashion, it's about legacy. But here's the truth. White helmets didn't begin with Ray Perkins. They were already part of Alabama's story. According to a breakdown published by Sports Illustrated in 2022, Alabama wore white helmets for the first time in 1949. That version had a crimson stripe down the middle. In 1955, the Tide went all white. And in 1956, the crimson stripe returned. These records are also preserved in collections like Helmet History and Gridiron Helmets. So picture this, fan. Tuscaloosa in the mid-1950s, the stands are packed, Yay Alabama is blaring from the band, and the Tide runs out with gleaming white helmets reflecting the afternoon sun. Back then, it didn't feel strange. It was just another look. Alabama was still building its visual identity, still experimenting. By the 1960s, white helmets had another role. As Sports Illustrated pointed out, they were often used in night games when stadium lighting wasn't great and visibility was an issue. The white helmets helped receivers stand out, making it easier to read the game. That's fascinating because it shows that uniform changes weren't just about style back then. They were also tactical. And remember, the 1960s were the Bear Bryant dynasty years. Alabama was winning national championships, setting the standard for excellence. White helmets showed up during that time, and nobody called it blasphemy. They were simply part of the repertoire. By the 1970s, the white helmet was fading out, but it wasn't completely gone. One of the most famous moments came in 1971, when Alabama faced USC and also Houston. According to Helmet History, the Tide ran onto the field in white helmets with crimson numbers and a crimson stripe. For some fans, that was the last clear memory before the Perkins era. So the pattern is clear. White was always situational. It was never the dominant look, but it was never fully erased either. At least not until 1983 to 1984. And then we get to the most nostalgic chapter. Bear Bryant retired in 1982.
The man who defined modern Alabama football stepped aside, and Ray Perkins took over in 1983. It was in this moment of transition that the white helmets came back. According to 1819 News, Alabama wore white in several road games in the 1983 and 1984 seasons. Collections like Helmet History confirm that this was the last time Alabama officially used white helmets. Why did Perkins bring them back? He never left a manifesto, but the general consensus is that he wanted to put his own stamp on the program while also reaching back to an old tradition. It was almost like saying, Alabama's entering a new era, but we haven't forgotten where we came from. The problem? Perkins didn't win like Bryant. The results weren't the same. And you know how it works. When the team is struggling and the uniform is different, people blame the uniform. Many fans started associating the white helmets with a strange, less glorious era. By 1985, the white helmets were retired for good.
After 1985, the white helmets went silent. And when Nick Saban arrived in Tuscaloosa in 2007, that door was locked shut. In September of 2022, Saban told Sports Illustrated, "We wear the same uniform. They want to wear white helmets. Everybody wants to do this and that. To me, there's an expectation that when we run out of the tunnel, this is the brand. This is the culture." In other words, the uniform itself is part of Alabama's intimidation. When the Tide storms onto the field, fans and opponents alike expect to see crimson. That image is part of the identity. That same week, Saban told Saturday Down South, "As long as I'm the coach here, we're not changing uniforms. We're not wearing white helmets." That was it, the final word. For Saban, the crimson helmet wasn't negotiable. It was a sacred part of the brand. Under him, Alabama would dominate, but it would dominate looking exactly the same as it had for decades. For a whole generation of fans, the crimson helmet became untouchable. When Nick Saban stepped down, many wondered, will Kalen DeBoer bring changes? Could this be the moment the white helmets make a comeback? But in November of 2024, during an SEC coaches teleconference, DeBoer told Saturday Down South, "That's never been mentioned, not here. There is so much history and tradition with the crimson helmets." He reinforced the same idea to 1819 News. He had never even thought about it. No conversations, no plans. His priority is performance on the field, not experimenting with helmets. And, as he explained to On3, changing uniforms isn't something that happens overnight. There are contracts, logistics, and most of all, the weight of tradition. Right now, nothing points to Alabama bringing back the white helmets under DeBoer. Still, the topic refuses to die. In fan forums, radio shows, and even articles on Yellowhammer News, the nostalgia for the white helmets keeps bubbling up. On one side are the nostalgics, fans who lived through the 1960s or remember the Perkins years. For them, the white helmets are a part of Alabama's story. They argue that at least once a year, maybe for a special game, the Tide should honor that tradition. On the other side are the purists, the traditionalists, who see the crimson helmet as sacred. To them, wearing white helmets again would be betraying the very identity of Alabama football. This split shows just how much emotion a simple piece of equipment can carry. It's not just paint on plastic. It's memory. It's pride. It's the internal tug of war between nostalgia and tradition. Is there any chance of a return? So what's the truth? Right now, the honest answer is very little. Nick Saban wouldn't allow it. Kalen DeBoer doesn't even think about it. There are no supplier contracts, no institutional push, no official discussion. But, and this is where it gets dramatic, in college football, never doesn't always mean never. A centennial celebration, an anniversary rivalry, a one-off tribute game, those things can sometimes open doors. If the white helmets ever return, it won't be permanent. It will be symbolic, a nod to the past, a throwback to history, a relic, not a revolution.
At the end of the day, this debate isn't really about helmets. It's about what Alabama stands for. When Nick Saban told Sports Illustrated in 2022 that the uniform is the brand and the culture, he wasn't just talking about clothes. He was talking about the very soul of the program. When Kalen DeBoer told Saturday Down South in 2024 that white helmets have never been mentioned, he wasn't being dismissive. He was protecting a tradition that has carried Alabama for generations. And yet, the memory lingers, because the white helmets were real. They showed up in 1949. They returned in 1955 and 1956. They glowed in night games of the 1960s. They charged the field against USC in 1971. And they came back one last time with Ray Perkins in 1983 and 1984. After that, they vanished. And maybe it's the very disappearance that fuels the fascination today. Because when something is gone, you wonder if it might come back. So I'll throw the question back to you. Would you like to see Alabama take the field again, maybe in Athens at Sanford Stadium, or right here in Tuscaloosa, wearing white helmets shining like they did in the 80s? Or do you believe crimson should remain untouchable, the eternal symbol of the Tide? Drop your opinion in the comments below, because this isn't just about helmets. It's about tradition, identity, and what it truly means to be Alabama. This is Roll Tide Press.